This past week has been a big week for my family. We found out Tuesday that we're having a boy. We found out that we have a son on the way. We knew we were having a baby, but we found out it was a boy this past Sunday. So the prognosticators were wrong. If you were betting the odds of a boy, you would have won big money because the odds were going the other way. And in fact, even Molly and I, we try not to anticipate it. You try to anticipate. We have two sons already, and so now we're in the process of picking a name, which when you've already had two boys, you've kind of already used up all the names that you thought. You're thinking, well, if I ever have a son, I want to name him this. And David was always the name that I was going to pick for my son. But then Molly's brother was named David, so we decided not to name him after someone who already has a name that named the same name, so we called him Matthew. But yeah, Matthew David. His middle name is actually David, but. So we're in that process. Name is weird. It's like one of those things that you can't choose. Nobody picks their own name, but you can't imagine your name being anything different. At least maybe you can, or maybe we were talking about that with some fellow members of our leadership team, talking about what the name would be. And you have one or two names, and you pick one of those names, then you can't ever imagine that you would name the child the other name, that their name would be that, because that's what you become familiar with. That's their name. It's been given to you, unless you decide to change it later in life or something. Your name is important. Any person's name or any recognition or fame that comes to your name is fame that comes to you, unless your name is like Michael Jackson or something, and then you're already famous when you're born. There's so many maybe of that particular name. The book of Proverbs talks about the importance of a name. Solomon in Proverbs chapter 22, verse 1, he says, "A good name is more desirable than great riches. To be esteemed is better than silver or gold." When he talks about the value of a good name, he's not talking about value in terms of what it means or how nice it sounds or what letter it starts with. No, a good name is speaking about your reputation. What do people think of when they hear your name? It is because a good name matters so much to us, because it is so highly valued. We invest a great deal of time and energy and resources into our names. Because a good name is highly valued, it is hotly pursued. You ever heard someone say, "I'm going to defend my good name"? They've been slandered, maybe unjustly. Maybe you've heard someone talking about bringing dishonor to the family name. That's something you don't hear as much of anymore. Maybe if you were born in the mafia, maybe you hear about that. But there is concern about how the family name, the reputation is perceived. When someone says, "Get your name out there," it means like you want to promote yourself so that people hear you, that your name is circulated in the right circles, or make a name for yourself. You say if you're famous, your name would be in lights, somewhere on some marquee. Someone come see you and hear you or whatever. Your name, you are famous. Recognition or fame is associated with your name. And people will make a great deal of energy and investment and time will be put into any project that involves promoting either their name or someone else's name. If you've ever worked on a political campaign, it's all about promoting the candidate, promoting their name, getting their name out there. You're getting a certain name, promoting a certain name. It's all about fame, recognition, because that's important in terms of getting votes and winning election. A great deal of emphasis, a great deal of energy goes into projects around making names for ourselves. I get a publication about once quarterly from the school that I graduated from. And every now and then I'll send a donation. They send money, letters all the time asking for donations, and sometimes I'll send them. And in some of those publications, they'll list the donors, who donated this year. And so when I get that, guess what I look for? I go to look for my name. Where's my name? Nobody else is looking for my name, but I go in there, I say, I don't give it for that, but I wonder if it's listed, and it's there, some acknowledgement that you have given something. People give money so that their names maybe can be engraved in brick somewhere and put on some walkway, a concourse of a university or a school. Sometimes there are whole colleges that are named after you. If you give them a lot of money, they'll name the whole college, that part of the school, that part of the university after you. Where I grew up, it was the top of the water tank, That's where your name was. Billy Bob loves Wanda Sue. You know, you climb up on the water tank. They don't do that anymore. People just don't really, I guess they kind of figured out the water tank manufacturers. They don't build it to where you can climb up there and do that anymore. But that used to happen a lot. You know, where I grew up, that's what you would do. And there's something about it. You know, there's something about our name being somewhere. Maybe it's inscribed, or it's in a publication, or it's on a water tank, or initials in a tree, or on a piece of concrete, or whatever, that says, I was here. I was here. So that when some person comes by, they'll see that and they'll wonder, who was that? There'll be some little hint at immortality. Someone maybe long after you're gone, and there's nothing left of you, your name will be all that's left. That's why our name matters so much. See, I think all of us have three things that we desire that our obsession with our names sometimes, or regarding promoting our names, comes down to, or where it is born from. And that is, we all want to be known. We want somebody to know us. So much of our promotion of ourselves, or whatever, is a desire just to be known. Someone would know us. We want to make known. That's part of what we were created to, whether it's for ourselves or someone else. We want to make known, to announce, to spread the word. And we want to outlast our lifetimes. We want to be remembered. Because our time of life is short. What's going to be here that's a testimony that you were here? It's a hint at immortality, living forever, because none of us will, at least in this state. So what will outlast our lifetimes? And so what happens, because all of these three things are true, what happens a lot of times, and maybe it's happened to you, probably has happened to all of us at some point, I know it's happened to me in seasons of my life at times, is that we take these three and we jumble them together. And what we get is an attempt to outlast our lifetime by making ourselves known. The way to immortality is to become famous, or to be notorious, or to be notoriety, the pursuit of fame or recognition. We could describe notoriety in this way, that notoriety is an attempt to pursue immortality, to outlast our lifetimes, to live forever, to pursue immortality by promoting ourselves. Now, we would never say it like that, okay? Because we frown on that, because we have this kind of sense that being humble is better than being proud. And one reason that we don't really like people promoting themselves is because we want to be promoting ourselves, okay? So we wouldn't really admit it, but it comes down to that's really what it's all about. To achieve a level of fame and of legacy and of power by promoting ourselves. And the first cooperative venture, the first cooperative project of the human race, the first thing that people got together to work on something to do together was to do just that. To make a name for themselves. To build something. We love to build things. At least guys do, you know. I built this. It's a reminder I was here. I've left my mark on the world. And the story of this is told in Genesis chapter 11, beginning in verse 4. They is the whole human race, okay? It says everybody was living in one place, and they were all speaking the same language. This is only like a few chapters past Genesis 1, so we're in the very early stages of the human race. And they say to each other, come, let's build ourselves a city with a tower that reaches to the heavens. That's going to be really important coming back. They're trying to build something that's going to go as high as possible. It's going to go all the way up to the heavens so that we can make a name for ourselves. Otherwise, we will be scattered over the face of the whole earth. So they're going to build a tower, almost like they're trying to build their way back to God, to the immortal one, a way to find immortality, to live forever, by making a name for ourselves, by promoting ourselves, making ourselves known. Well, it doesn't work out very well. What we discover is that when that's our goal, when that's our main project, it turns out to be an exercise in futility. And even more than that, it's something of which God is actively opposed. Look what happens in verse 5. Some of you are going to see this and be like, what? But look what happened. That the Lord came down to see the city and the tower the people were building, which is interesting language to describe what God is doing. It says, the Lord said, if as one people speaking the same language, they have begun to do this, then nothing they plan to do will be impossible for them. It's kind of weird. It's like God's like, is God threatened by their power? No. But look what happens here. Verse 7, it says they say, so God says, come, let us. That God uses the language let us is kind of interesting. Maybe a hint that multiple persons in one God, maybe it's a sort of a hint of what could be coming. Come, let us go down and confuse their language so they will not understand each other. So the Lord scattered them from there all over the earth, and they stopped building the city and they stopped building the tower. Maybe you've heard this story before. What is the name of this tower? It's called Babel. Verse 9. That is why it was called Babel, because there the Lord confused the language of the whole world. From there the Lord scattered them over the face of the whole earth. Now, if you study like anthropology or ancient cultures or languages, or you're a linguist or whatever, it might seem strange, this story, if you've never heard it before, it might seem strange or maybe even a little far-fetched that the idea of all the languages of the world started with this scattering that happened at this one place called Babel, where God scattered all the people all over the earth. But really, I mean, anthropologists do believe, and those who study human origins, that human beings began in one place and that the group of them was very small. In fact, if you ever had DNA testing, they can trace your DNA. They say there's like one common ancestor for all people, like so many thousands of years ago. So maybe it's not hard to believe that all people spoke one language at one time. And what's certainly not hard to believe, or that's not strange or far-fetched, is the idea of people coming together to work on some project that involves notoriety or fame or power, building power for themselves, that ends in disillusionment and frustration, distrust, alienation, a scattering, broken relationships, people torn apart. That's not hard to imagine at all. Because what happens when we pursue immortality through notoriety, pursuing immortality by making ourselves known, ultimately leaves us all alone. When you have to be king, it's lonely at the top, right? And those who have the greatest notoriety and fame in our culture are perfect examples of this. For whom the opinion of others is what's constantly pursued, and having to be better than everybody else or more famous than them. Those who are celebrities, and I can't judge them because I think all of us, but they are examples of the things that all of us struggle with. They're miserable. I mean, they are known by everybody, but really no one truly knows them. Their circle of friends are very small. Usually they're other celebrities. They live in these huge mansions with walls and gates to keep other people out. You can't go to a restaurant without being bombarded with people. Everywhere you go, there's people taking pictures of you. You know, all the news stories or the gossip columnists. I mean, can you imagine how hard that would be? How lonely that would be? Well, through digital technology, we literally have the capability now to become famous overnight. I mean, there are people who send out a tweet, okay? They're famous overnight. There was a bus driver in Montevallo who bought biscuits or donuts or something for every kid on his bus. Did y'all see this? And he was broadcast all over the world. Like everybody knew about him, like overnight. Obviously not everybody, but I saw it on the news yesterday. While I was preparing sometimes while I'm preparing for sermons, I'm like, I sometimes will check the news, just procrastinating. That does happen for me sometimes. Instant notoriety, instant fame. Instantly people love you and people hate you. I mean, that's what happens. And what happens is that social media and the digital world can become a place where we try to make ourselves known and to become famous or pursue notoriety. Everybody can know what you're thinking, what you're feeling, what you're having for breakfast, everything at one time. And usually, a lot of times, we're posting out there hoping there's somebody who's watching, especially somebody that we really want to impress and we really want them to like us. And so we check back and how many likes did I get and how many comments, how many retweets did I get, how many followers do I have? You do that too, right? I mean, you do that because it gives us a rush and a feeling like somebody knows us, somebody cares about us. It gives us that feeling, but it's one-sided. And it leads to ultimately, it gives a rush, but then it leads to emptiness. Because real life relationships is how we are known. Not in a digital world. It's a poor imitation. See, being known or being known by everyone knowing you, and everyone knowing your name is no guarantee that anybody truly knows you. Everyone knowing your name is no guarantee that anyone knows you. And so maybe the reason that people were building this tower to the heavens, and that could symbolize really any kind of way we trying to climb the ladder. We want to be, the king, the top, or whatever. That we want to, that attempt to reach up to the heavens is wondering, is there somebody up there who cares about me, who knows me? Because I feel all alone. Is there somebody up there who can give me what I seek, help me to outlast my lifetime, the immortality so I can somehow escape what seems to be the absolute despair and meaninglessness of this life? The tower to the heavens. It's a human project that happens over and over and over again. And it's actually a theme that happens over and over and over in the Bible. A few centuries later, however many years it was, I don't know. But it's recorded for us in Genesis chapter 28. We're told that there was a man named Jacob. You've probably heard of him before. Jacob was a young man. He was an ambitious young man. He was set to make his mark on the world. He had left home. He had alienated himself from his brother in manipulation and lies and deceit to steal the birthright from his brother. And so as a result, his mother sends him away. Go away, your brother, I'm afraid he's going to kill you. Go to Haran, to go back to where we came from and find a wife for yourself, and that way you'll live and not die. And so Jacob leaves home. And this is before the days of cell phones and 2-hour trips in the car and all that. When he leaves home, he knows he's not going to see his family for years, if ever. But on this journey, in one particular place, he sets up camp for the night. And he lays down, and there's a rock there where he sleeps there, and he has a dream. And we're told that in this dream that he has, he sees a stairway. Some translations say a ladder. It's more substantial than just a ladder, okay? It's some structure. You might even describe it as a tower that reaches to heaven. Now, what human beings trying to build to heaven didn't work, didn't complete, Jacob sees, and it appears in his dream. This is what they were trying to do. Here is the portal to heaven. And the angels of God were ascending and descending on it. So here's this portal to God, the immortal realm, the spiritual realm, angels coming back and forth. And in verse 13, it says that above it, he stood the Lord. And he said, this is what God said, I am the Lord, the God of your father Abraham and the God of Isaac. In other words, I know you. I know who you are. I will give you and your descendants the land on which you are lying. And then he says, I'm going to bless you and you're going to be a blessing to the whole world. I know you. I'm going to make you known. And as a result, you will leave a legacy that will outlast your lifetime. And in fact, it will last for all eternity and will lead to the entire human race being able to attain what has always eluded them, that immortality. Later, God appears again to Jacob, and he changes his name. Chapter 35, verse 10 of Genesis. That's actually the second time God has told him this. He says, your name is Jacob, but you will no longer be called Jacob. Your name will be Israel. So he named him Israel, which is actually the Hebrew word that means one who wrestles with or struggles with God. And so Jacob, or Israel, this swindler, this deceiver, this dream he has, shows him, and God's word to him, that somehow or another this gap between heaven and earth and what we have always wanted and pursued but never attained, it's going to be accomplished somehow through this guy Jacob and through Israel and the people who come from him, and ultimately through one person that comes from this nation. All right, fast forward. Don't let me lose you here, okay? Because we're like fast forwarding about 2,000 years, several more centuries, to a descendant of Jacob. One who was descendant of Israel, an Israelite, if you will say. His name is Nathanael. And Nathanael hears from his friend Philip that he has met someone who is the Messiah, the one they've been waiting for. And Nathanael says, well, where is he from? And he said, he's from Nazareth. Nathanael said, Nazareth? Can anything good come from Nazareth? And Philip said, come and see. And so Nathanael goes to find this man named Jesus. We're told in John 1:47, it says, when Jesus saw Nathanael approaching, he said to him, here truly is an Israelite, or a descendant of Jacob, in whom there is no deceit. You know, in other words, this seems to be kind of a slight against Jacob. Jacob was deceiving. Jacob was dishonest. But you, Nathanael, you're not dishonest. There is no deceit in you. And so Nathanael is like, well, how do you know me? We never met before. I've never seen you before. He asked him, how do you know me? Jesus answered, I saw you while you were still under the fig tree before Philip called you. What was happening there? Maybe he was reading the scriptures. Maybe he was praying. But no one else was there. So how could you have seen me when I was with no one else, when we've never met before? He tells him this to basically show him that I knew what you were doing, okay, even when I wasn't there. And Nathanael is amazed. He says, Rabbi, you are the Son of God. You are the King of Israel. And Jesus said, you believe because I told you I saw you under the fig tree? Just wait. You will see greater things than that. Let me tell you what you're going to see. Now, hold on, just reel back in here. If you're lost, you're bored, you're looking at your phone, whatever, just reel back in. Look at this. This is awesome. Okay. Verse 51. He then said this, very truly I tell you, you will see heaven open and angels of God ascending and descending on the Son of Man. That's in quotation marks. Heaven open and the angels of God ascending and descending on the Son of Man. What? I mean, I don't know. I read the Bible, and I don't remember this event where Jesus stretches out, and there's angels. That's weird. That sounds like a cartoon or something. It's a direct reference to the dream of Jacob, which is a reference to the Tower of Babel. That what human beings couldn't do on their own, I will do. I am the bridge between heaven and earth. I am the key to immortality, to outlasting your lifetime so you can know God. Because guess what? He already knows you. You're already famous to Him, Nathaniel. You're famous to the one who is most famous of all. He knows you. He knows you completely. I mean, a lot of times we believe in God, and we say we do. But then the idea, when it really strikes us, God really knows who I am, what I'm doing. That can be horrifying, scary. He knows where you are. He knows you completely. He knows what you're going through, what you've been through. You are already famous to the most famous one, whose other opinion can matter. And if you're concerned about immortality and outlasting your legacy or your lifetime, let me tell you this. John chapter 17, verse 3, Jesus tells us how to do that or what that's all about. He says, this is eternal life, that they know you, the only true God. He's praying here. And Jesus Christ, whom you have sent. So immortality, outlasting our lifetimes, is to know Jesus. That's how we outlast our lifetimes. In Isaiah chapter 9, verses 6 and 7, this is really our theme verse for the King Me series. This is where the prophet Isaiah, 700 years before Jesus was born, predicts that there will be a king who will be born. For to us a child is born, to us a son is given. The government will be on his shoulders. He will be called, in other words, his name will be Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. It was not uncommon that a king would have multiple titles. All of these titles blend together to describe the magnificence of his character and his person, of the greatness of his government and peace. There will be no end. You talk about notoriety, you talk about fame. Listen, there's going to be nothing to rival this man's kingdom. And so for all of the time that you have on earth, which is very brief, the quicker the years pass, the quicker you realize how brief that it is. How will you invest the time that's given to you? Will it be invested in promoting yourself, your own name, building your own Tower of Babel to the heavens? Or could it be joining in the greatest name of all, of promoting that name, of the one who is above all and came before all, but who took the last place? He was first, and he took the last place. So we could take part in his place. You see, outlasting our lifetimes comes by knowing Jesus and making him known. Knowing Jesus and making him known. That's the way to leave a truly lasting legacy. John the Baptist was probably the most famous guy of his generation. Everybody knew John. John was baptizing people down at the Jordan River. He had a huge following. Huge crowds would come to see him. And he would stand out there and he would tell off the people in power. You brood of vipers. And so he was a champion of the little guy. Everybody loved John the Baptist. But what happened is John, who was a cousin of Jesus, when Jesus came and John baptized Jesus, what happened is that a lot of John's disciples started following Jesus. And the crowds who were following John started following Jesus. And so people came to him and were like, what's going on, man? Everybody's leaving you and they're going to Jesus. What's happening? All your notoriety, your fame. I love John's answer. I love his answer when they come to him and tell him this. John is very clear. It's like my legacy's never been to outlast my lifetime in terms of what I do, what I build. My legacy is to try to help other people outlast their lifetimes. And the way to do that is not through me, not by knowing me. John chapter 3, verse 30. Here's John the Baptist's words. He must increase, but I must decrease. He must increase, but I must decrease. I wonder if the lack of fulfillment and frustration and alienation and the disintegration of relationships that you might be experiencing, I wonder, for all you're pursuing and trying to accomplish and achieve that's causing frustration, I wonder if this statement might be the balm to heal your soul. He must increase, but I must decrease. I'm not talking about you got to try to convince me that he's the most important, like you got to impress me with your religious, your holiness, and all that. No, this is very simple. He must increase, but I must decrease. I think any time that we invest in a project that's bigger than ourselves is good. Whether it's for our community, the good of our community, the good of our church, the good of our country, the good of our children, any project that's bigger than ourselves is good. But what better project to invest in terms of making a name for somebody and promoting them? What better project to invest in than in the one who is the greatest name? The one that has the name above all names. For it says in Philippians 2, it's at the name of Jesus that every knee shall bow in heaven and on earth, every tongue acknowledge Jesus Christ is Lord, to the glory of God the Father. It's about making Him famous. So let's do that. Let's make Him famous. Let's stop our exercise in futility. Stop trying to pursue immortality as if we can get that on our own. It's handed to us. It's offered to us. It's through knowing Jesus. Stop building our tower to try to make a name for ourselves and instead start promoting the name above all names. To know the one who knows all and who knows all about you. To make famous, the most famous one, to know Him who knows all and will be known by all. Because notoriety and fame is not king. Jesus is king.